All right, everybody, welcome to a special episode. We're reliving Jimmy Talk Wrestling with Jimmy and Frank, and we have the ever famous JJF, James Joseph Luca. How are you, sir?
I am doing well. Been indulging in some great Marvel comics. For
Yes,
those of you that haven't been reading, Lady Thor.
Lady Thor. Oh yeah,
Lady
brother.
Thor.
Show everybody the guns, brother.
Oh no! Trust me, I don't have guns yet,
Oh
but I'm
yeah.
working on it.
Anyway, so as we were discussing a while back, I think it was 2 years ago, me and James, we did an episode. We covered Daniel Bryan's retirement speech that night. And of course, if anybody who doesn't know, James is one of the biggest Daniel Bryan fans. He fought a tooth and nail. He gave a pound of flesh when during the Daniel Bryan run. He battled online to argue his point that Daniel Bryan should be in the main event for WrestleMania 30 and win the heavyweight championship, which he did. Of course, as we pointed out, his Daniel Bryan's push was only supposed to go to SummerSlam 2013. That was supposed to be his moment, and then it was clear as daylight that WWE was dialing back Daniel Bryan. Of course, because they already had made plans with Batista to come in and win the Rumble and face Randy Orton at WrestleMania. But you, the fans, hijacked almost every show from that SummerSlam through the Royal Rumble to voice their opinion that they wanted to see Daniel Bryan get another shot at the title. And he did. Then he got injured, right?
He did.
And then he came back almost a year later, and that, which is now a pretty famous intercontinental match at WrestleMania 31. And then he got injured again, and then eventually he was forced to retire because he had concussion syndrome, his neck, blah, blah, blah. And here we are now, March 20th, 2018, after months of speculation due to his contract being expiring in September of this year, 2018. WWE and Daniel Bryan have finally made an announcement on the status of Daniel Bryan. Now, go ahead, James, take it away.
Well, how it happened, for the best of my knowledge, because I was working today. I'm sitting at my desk, putting in reports, and my phone kept on buzzing, and it kept buzzing, and I'm like, oh my God, what the hell is this? It wouldn't stop. So I finished my report, grabbed my phone because, I figured I want to know what the hell's going on. Is it my family? Is someone trying to reach me? Because, hey, for those of you that don't know, when you got a family, you got to make sure you check it out. So I looked, and I had at least 6 or 7 messages telling me, Bryan's cleared, Bryan's cleared. And I'm like, did everyone get together to play a sick joke on me? So I opened the links, and I saw that it was true. I was like, what? They actually cleared him?
Right. Now, James, just like all the fans, he was surprised because, as you know, as maybe if you don't know, there is an ongoing class action lawsuit filed against WWE by, it's a ridiculous suit
Ridiculous.
Filed by several ex professional wrestlers who have now fallen on ill times. Their health has degenerated. Specifically, maybe they have concussion syndrome or are suffering from mental health issues and physical issues. And somehow, some group of lawyers or a lawyer, I'm not too familiar with it, convinced these wrestlers and performers to take part in a class action lawsuit against WWE, blaming WWE for their current conditions, and which is it's a stupid lawsuit because a lot of these performers wrestled outside of WWE. So how could they prove to a specific instance where they WWE caused their injuries or conditioned in a WWE ring?
It's a ridiculous suit. I think we could agree on that.
But in WWE's defense, in their defense, they got scared shitless from the NFL lawsuit when all the NFL players filed a similar class action lawsuit against the NFL for their conditions.
Which I think CM Punk touched on in his shoot with Colt Cabana.
Right. But see, that's different because if you're an ex NFL player, you could point out specifically to being hurt during an NFL game, and even that is iffy because you
You
know,
know what you're getting into when you play the game.
right, but yeah, even though they did win, but even though that could have been determined, they could have got concussions in growing up when they were teenagers in high school, college. But that was that. But in wrestling, it's different. It's a show. First of all, it's a show. It's a scripted show, so WWE can't be held liable for an injury that occurs because they didn't specifically incorporate that injury. It could be by accident. But
Which 9 times out of 10 it is.
But anyway, so WWE's side was they're scared shitless because God forbid they clear Daniel Bryan, and it still could happen. God forbid he gets hurt, or 5 years from now something bad happens to Daniel Bryan where his health degenerates. Daniel Bryan could come back and sue WWE. I'm not saying he is. I'm not. It doesn't matter. You have to think of it as a business. So now I guess we all remembered. James remembered the heartfelt retirement speech.
Yes.
Daniel Bryan, what did he say? He said he suffered from seizures, which me and James we said back then something's not right here. This guy leading up to his retirement speech was posting pictures of his workouts on Twitter and Instagram.
Saying, he was very adamantly and very publicly trying to get back into the ring, and both Frank and myself felt it was a little fishy on how he went from pushing hard to try to get back into the ring to now all of a sudden he's clamping up.
Well, it wasn't even that he was pushing hard. It was that he was giving the signal, hey, I'm working out. I'm ready. Why am I not being cleared? So then finally, I put two and two together that something had to give. So I think WWE sat Daniel Bryan down at the time and said, listen, you're never going to wrestle in our ring again. You either do this, have a great retirement speech, you'll have a job with us for the rest of your life. We could use you as a performer, but you can't wrestle. So to either do this or we release you and then you go and we never have anything to do with you. So Daniel Bryan is a smart businessman, and it's the obvious. So here we are now. He's cleared. So what did you see, and what did you gather from this speech tonight that Daniel Bryan, the segment from Daniel Bryan's promos tonight?
Well, I can tell you because when I got home, made dinner, and I knew SmackDown was coming on, and I heard that Bryan was going to open the show. And for the first time since WrestleMania 33, I turned on a WWE show.
Right, and let's just preface that to the fans. James, he's a disgruntled, disillusioned WWE fan after watching for so many years. So many straws that broke the camel's back with James and other fans. So James proclaimed that he only if in the event that Daniel Bryan got cleared to return,
or if the Undertaker and Sting were going to have a match, right, I would come back.
Right. In this case, James now he did say this now. Whether he watches or not, it's up to him. But so go ahead, continues.
I turned on USA and I heard the reaction of, basically, and I'm not going to get too into this because we'll be here all night. I heard Daniel Bryan's music start playing, and I heard the crowd come alive. Exactly how a crowd is supposed to come alive for a babyface. That isn't an opinion. It is a fact. When you're the hero and you're being presented as one, the crowd should love you. If you're a villain, the crowd should hate you.
All right. So let's.
He came out. He gave what I felt was a very heartfelt speech, and you could tell just by looking at him that he meant it. That you could tell that no one gave him a script. Okay. When it came to talking about what he was talking about, and anyone who has something that they do in life, like a job that their dream job, and they love doing it, and just imagine having that dream job, and then it's just taken away from you, just like that.
And you can only do that job for a limited time. It's age gets into
wrestling. Wrestlers have a huge shelf life. So, yeah.
No, you mean they have a short shelf life?
They have a short shelf life. That's what I meant. Thanks, Frank.
All right. So hold on. Let's just play a little. We'll play a little bit of the segments from tonight.
Because you guys have supported me. Every week when I come out here, you guys chant, yes, and you guys chant, you deserve it. Lastly, but not leastly, I would like to say thank you and how much you supported me over the last 2 years. I don't know exactly when or where I will get back in this ring. Does that sound like a good idea? I don't know for sure if they compete in a WWE ring again.
Yes. So there you go. Daniel Bryan laying the seeds down for WrestleMania return. As it's been rumored, he would team up with Shane McMahon to go up against Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Like you said, James, it's like he never left. He had the crowd eating out of the palm of his hand. Universally over.
It's what that's why, Frank, I've been saying for as long as possible, you know, when you have guys that have that connection with the crowd, you can't manufacture that. You either have that connection or you don't. Can we agree on that?
Yeah, right. As me and James were talking right before the show, Daniel Bryan has. I said that's Daniel Bryan's greatest intangible, greatest attribute. Not so much his in-ring skills, or it's his ability to connect with the crowd. That's what separated him from the Nexus. I mean, when the Nexus debuted and he was shown early on in the first few segments of the Nexus angle, nobody knew. I mean, people knew who he was. He was Bryan Danielson, independent wrestler. But I mean, in a WWE ring, he really didn't stand out to much. He was a small guy. He was a rather odd, smaller guy. You know, he had a funny haircut. But as time went on and he was given time to talk, he connected with the crowd. Every time he gets on the mic, for some reason, he just speak. It sounds like he's speaking from the heart, and people eat it up.
No, it's and like I said, I know that you disagree with this, but I believe that a lot of fans, they see themselves in him because they, in their minds, I know this may sound very cheesy, but a lot of people's minds, that people that believe in him, they're saying if Daniel Bryan can do it, I can do it. He identifies with the audience. He identifies with the everyday guy.
Right. So I guess he's the ultimate underdog. He's the ultimate Mighty Mouse. And Vince McMahon saw that in him because, you know, as much as James or anybody else wants to say bad about Vince McMahon, and yes, he does wrong, but Vince McMahon, he as a genius promoter, he understands that. He knows what the fans are feeling and thinking, and that's why Daniel Bryan explained that in his book, it was Vince McMahon who came up with the yes chant, and Vince wanted to use him as the underdog. But there's a difference between using him as the underdog and just not letting the story go, not letting the story continue and flourish, which is what they did in the fall of 2013 by dialing him back. The fans simply were not satisfied with that SummerSlam moment. But eventually, whatever you want to say bad about WWE, they did come to their senses. They did give him the WrestleMania moment, but then he got hurt. So it's not their fault. It's not anybody's fault.
No, in terms of him not having the title long, it wasn't their fault.
No, he got hurt.
The only thing I do say, and unfortunately it gets glossed over, I feel, it has to be acknowledged that his WrestleMania 30 plans, their hand was forced. And if the fans didn't bitch and moan, and if Punk didn't walk out, it wouldn't have happened. Without the fan support for Bryan, that does not happen. Period.
Well, listen, that could be said about anybody. I mean, listen, you say you want the WWE to listen to the fans. The fans have to say it loud enough. A lot of times, WWE might test the fans to see if it's just a fad, if it's passing. In this case, it wouldn't die. It wasn't a fad. It wasn't a trend. It was a real thing. And then ultimately, WWE, as James said, not forced, but I mean,
their hand was forced.
Yeah, I'm saying
Because their original plan was Batista versus Orton.
right, but I'm saying they had no choice. I mean, it was an obvious choice. You got to put Daniel Bryan into the storyline. You can't go into the biggest show of the year without the biggest story happening, which Daniel Bryan was the biggest story happening. And listen, we say it's noted Vince McMahon wants to send the fans home happy for WrestleMania, and what better way to send the fans home happy than to have Daniel Bryan end the show holding 2 titles and the whole 70,000 plus arena fans chanting yes, yes, yes.
For WrestleMania 30, there was no better ending, and to their credit, they followed through exactly how they should have, and without getting into it, because I don't want to go off topic, you say that the WWE tests their audience and see if things are trends. Well, when something goes on for a while and they still don't respond, you have to acknowledge that, sometimes they're a little tone deaf.
Right. Well, maybe it's just not feasible. But anyway, just regardless of that, listen, he got hurt. So for 2 years, everybody pretty much was resigned to the fact they'd never see Daniel Bryan in the ring. What was it? In 2017, was it?
16, he retired. 2016.
Right, I'm saying when he became the general manager of SmackDown, and then those famous Talking Smack segments on the network with him and the Miz. I mean, I don't know if that was a work or
you could tell that they weren't scripted because they were being genuine.
Right. But it was the story, the segment was a work, but the Miz shot on. I guess he was shooting. And the Miz was talking about how he has been mistreated. And Daniel Bryan, there was a storyline there. I mean, that Daniel Bryan would have faced the Miz had WWE not cleared him. So that pretty much laid big seeds for this story. And people speculated.
And they can go back to that. Now that he's cleared, they can go back to that, and it would make all the sense in the world.
Right. People. It sparked a renewed interest. A lot of fans were like, "Whoa, is this a storyline building? Is this something?
It caught people's interest. It had over, you talk about YouTube views. It got over 2 million views. And when has the Miz ever been involved in something that had that much attention, aside from when he was main eventing WrestleMania?
Oh, listen, that reinvigorated the Miz. That made made people see the Miz in a whole new light. Him speaking that way, and it also laid the seeds down for a Daniel Bryan return, or at least to address the situation. And then late last year, a lot of fans like you were speculating that Daniel Bryan should leave WWE in September once his contract expires to wrestle. And people like me was saying that was a stupid thing that would be a stupid thing to do, because then if Daniel Bryan did that, and let's say he asked for his release or didn't renew his contract, and he goes to wrestle in New Japan or Ring of Honor or wherever, what happens if he would get hurt? Or what he would risk being ostracized by WWE, because then WWE wouldn't want anything to do with him, because how are we going to take him back? How are we going to take him back? He's always going to be viewed as WWE wrestler Daniel Bryan. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I thought that was foolish, but now I don't think it's going to come to that. So what are you expecting to see now, James?
The only thing I'd like to see out of Bryan, I don't have any delusions of grandeur of him becoming a champion ever again. If he did, that'd be maybe a nice token victory at one point. My only goal with Bryan, if he is going to be allowed to wrestle, is to just wrestle a couple of really good wrestlers. There's a couple of guys I'd like to see him wrestle. Other than that, that's really all I'm asking for.
So you're not expecting or asking for a return to him to come back full time and be a regular performer every week, where you would say you think it might be a good idea for him to just be an attraction, right?
For the betterment of his long-term health, I think it would. Listen, if he wants to do a couple of house shows, that's fine. He should have the option to. He shouldn't have to. I think a lot of these wrestlers, and this goes back to a discussion that you and I had a while ago, if you remember. A lot of these wrestlers suffer from overexposure, and if you see them every single week, they don't feel as special. Like, okay, if you remember back in '97, there'd be periods of time where I'm just using him as an example, not just singling him out, but there'd be weeks where The Undertaker wasn't on Raw, or Stone Cold Steve Austin wasn't on Raw, The Rock wasn't on Raw. They didn't have to be on every single week. I think that overexposure is something that they eventually need to address, because I think it affects the entire roster. And I think someone like a Daniel Bryan, who is, as you mentioned, universally over, but even someone like him, the fans will eventually grow tired of him. So you want to know what? Maybe if he's on every other week or every 2 weeks, that's fine. I wouldn't mind that.
Listen, I agree. There's no need for any performer to be on every single week, 52 times a year.
That's why there should be a rotation.
Yeah. Have a rotation depending on the angles. Then this week is the 21st. You could say, oh, and coming next week, Daniel Bryan will be making an appearance on SmackDown.
Yeah, one week you got Bryan versus The Miz as one of the feuds. Another week you got Jinder Mahal and Randy Orton, or whatever it is that they're doing.
That's what they used to do back in the 80s.
Absolutely. Overexposure is we could say whatever we want about how the internet and kayfabe and they play to too many things. I think we could agree overexposure is something that they do eventually need to address, because if you throw too much product at your customers, you're asking a lot of them.
Right.
3 hours of Raw, 2 hours of SmackDown, 1 hour of NXT, and then you got main event, and then you got a pay-per-view every month. You're asking a lot of your audience.
Right. I remember those 80s TV shows, those hourly shows. They would say, hey, and next week, don't you dare miss. We'll have Hulk Hogan making a special announcement on Piper's Pit. And
yeah, see, like Frank, my wife and I, we watch Gotham every week, and we can't wait to get to Thursday night, because we know it's going to be Gotham. It's a new episode. We're psyched, but we also have 6 days to decompress and miss it. WWE, they don't give you a chance to miss them.
Right. Yeah, there's too much exposure.
Too much product.
Getting off that topic, I think.
But yes, I agree with you. Bryan should have like a Chris Jericho contract, in the aspect of he doesn't have to be on SmackDown every single week, but you could have him wrestle. And if he shows that he can handle it, if he wants to go full time, he should have the option to.
Right. I think maybe
after he proves that he can do it.
I think he should only wrestle on pay-per-views. How about that?
I hear what you're saying.
Keep him on pay-per-views. See, like what he did tonight. You do work your promo out. Do your promos and your promo segments on SmackDown, and then only have the matches on pay-per-view. That way he saves wear and tear on his body.
And when he does wrestle on SmackDown, it means something.
Right. I don't think he should ever wrestle on TV. Maybe once a year wrestle on TV. But I think all his matches should be on pay-per-view only. Make him a special attraction. You want to see Daniel Bryan? You got to go on the network. Or you got to see it on pay-per-view. It makes it special. It makes a difference.
See, that I can get behind. Yeah. Now, I'd like to ask you a question. I know you don't have favorites, but is there anybody, maybe 2-3 guys that you could think of that you'd like to see him wrestle?
Oh,
that you'd be interested.
I think he has to, the natural rivalry has to be should be addressed with him and the Miz. I think that'll be money. Even though they were starting to have a bit of a rivalry when he left the last time. I think. Am I right or wrong?
No, when Bryan was wrestling, he was in a feud with believe it or not, it was Bad News Barrett.
Okay. For some reason,
Sheamus. Right, it wasn't the
Miz. But now the Miz, going back to that Talking Smack promos, and the Miz has taken Daniel Bryan's moves, some of his movesets with the kicks. That's a natural rivalry.
Agreed. I can get behind that.
I don't want to see any Daniel Bryan Dolph Ziggler matches.
Dolph Ziggler lost his value a long time ago.
No, I don't want to see that. That's old. Maybe wrestlers that he could match up with that weren't there when he did retire. I don't know. You would love to see him and Seth Rollins go at it. Him and Finn Balor. Him and Nakamura would be great.
I'd love to see him wrestle AJ Styles.
AJ Styles. I mean, those
would be phenomenal. No pun intended.
Oh yeah.
Him and Nakamura, I'd be a little nervous because of the shots to the head, but I'd be interested. As a Legends match, I mean, I know he's older and broken down, but I'd love to see Daniel Bryan and Kurt Angle. Could you imagine? Imagine if you gave those two guys 20 minutes on a SummerSlam, what they could do?
Right. Yeah, but I in a way, I think that's past.
Even Kurt Angle on Twitter today was saying, "So Bryan's cleared, huh?"
Yeah, I know. He's.
I know that Kurt's a lot older, but I think it's worth exploring or at least considering.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but it'd be hard to wind up making a storyline between them two. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of possible matchups that you could do with wrestlers and performers who are not there or who weren't as big when he retired. I mean, we just named a few, and
Samoa Joe. I'd love to see him and Joe mix it up.
Samoa Joe, but it's all about how they incorporate the storylines. You know, he's on SmackDown. He's on SmackDown. A lot of them are on Raw. You know, it'll be how they choose to do this. But now, let me ask you a question.
You can ask me anything you want.
Do you think now a lot of you and a lot of fans have been clamoring for his return? What if, God forbid, this guy gets hurt?
I'll feel terrible for him. I would never want to see anyone get hurt. But I will also say every single one of them are at risk to get hurt.
Right.
That's part of the game. It's part of the business. You go into this knowing that you're going to get hurt. That's just part of the deal. However, the only thing I'm saying is that if all of these doctors that he's gone to, one after the other, are saying that he's good to go, then no one should have any guilt. No one should feel guilty. Now, if he was going to all these doctors and like 50% of them are saying, hey, man, you really shouldn't be doing this, or even 40% are saying he shouldn't do this, that's where I would say, you know what? You got enough people saying that that's a red flag. You got a wife, you got a daughter, you shouldn't be doing this. But it's been unanimous, Frank.
Right. No, okay. No, I'm saying
that. So I'll feel fine because all these doctors have been saying that he's good to go. So
I was just saying, what if he gets hurt? Would you?
If he gets hurt, I'll feel terrible for him.
Saying, would you feel guilt somewhere? Guilt in the not?
I would because I want to see him wrestle. The only thing I did say, if you remember going back to our show, I want to see him wrestle if he is physically able to. If he's not physically able to, I don't want to see him get hurt because as cliche as it sounds, I care about the guy because I think he's a genuinely. You don't want to listen. You may not like Roman Reigns. I may not like John Cena, but we don't want to see these guys actually get hurt.
No, I understand. I'm saying
let's be realistic here.
But I think he should just when he makes a comeback. I think he should have limited appearances, be a special attraction, and not go too crazy. Go in there with people the performers that'll protect him.
I would ask him to come up with another signature move and get rid of that headbutt.
Yeah, I'm sure.
He does not have to be doing headbutts. There is no reason for it. You're just begging for problems. To me, it's not necessary. Maybe he should also get rid of the suicide dive.
Yeah.
Maybe do another move. He could still do high-flying stuff. Just don't do stupid shit like that.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, he has nothing to prove.
Listen. Like you just said, he really has nothing to prove. He's proven his worth in the fact that he hasn't been in the ring in 2 years, but all he had to do was walk out in front of that audience, and like you said, he had them in the palm of his hand. Not everybody could do that.
He always will. He always will. Unless it's reported that he's got charged for some crime involving molesting.
He'd have to do something completely horrific to lose favor with the fans.
He got caught molesting boys. I don't know what could.
I understand what you're saying. He'd have to do something horrific to lose favor.
I mean, you never thought. All right, we'll end it like this: if Daniel Bryan never wrestles again, is he a WWE Hall of Famer?
Without question, he is. Coco Beware's in the Hall of Fame, and he did absolutely nothing.
Why is Daniel Bryan a Hall of Famer in your eyes?
Daniel Bryan is a Hall of Famer in my eyes because he had a connection with the crowd that very few could even grasp. The guy's matches spoke for themselves. He could wrestle damn near anybody and have a great match, a good to great match. And, you know, he's won every title that there is for him to win. To me, he meets the criteria.
Okay.
To me, what makes a Hall of Famer is someone that had a connection with the crowd, could put on good matches, and was successful at their trade. The guy was a world champion everywhere he went. He had a connection with the crowd everywhere he went. When he was in ROH, it wasn't designed for him to be the top guy there, but he got himself over. And anyone who watched him then,
he's a memorable, iconic character, personality of that current time, right?
no, he absolutely is. And
right, that's what a Hall of Famer should be. It should be somebody.
Absolutely. And listen, I didn't like The Miz for the longest time, but you know, the guy's completely improved. He's on a different level than he was 2-3 years ago. And I agree with you that at the very top of Bryan's list, if he has a list of guys that he wants to wrestle, I think that The Miz should be at the very top of that list. And I think that they should renew their rivalry because there's story there. It's not just two guys trying to have a good match like it would be him and AJ. More than likely, their story would be just two guys having a great match. At least with him and The Miz, there's story. There's something to it that people could sink their teeth into.
Right. Well, listen, I think, again, you, as I always tell you and warn you, and I warn everybody, manage your expectations. Don't start having scripting this guy and fantasy booking Daniel Bryan into...
With Daniel Bryan, I don't. The only thing I'd like to see him do if he's going to wrestle is to just wrestle a couple of guys and have get some good to great matches under his belt.
Right, win or lose, whatever. As long as
I don't care. He could wrestle The Miz and lose. He could wrestle AJ Styles and lose. He could wrestle Kevin Owens and I don't care. Right now, the only thing I want from him is
a good performance.
Is to just get some good performances in with some really good talent. Maybe one day to have some. I'm making myself laugh. Maybe if I really wanted to be the old Jimmy, get his win back from Roman Reigns. That'll make me happy. But the rest, that'd be pushing it because they're not going to do that.
I think we could see an Intercontinental or U.S. title win in his future. I think even for a couple of months that could happen. But
to me, that would be the ice. To me, that would be the cherry on top. Right now, if Bryan is cleared to wrestle, if all this is legit, and I hope that it remains that way and he stays injury-free, the only thing I'm hoping for is that he gets some really good matches under his belt. He gets to wrestle a couple of guys that he otherwise wouldn't have wrestled. You mentioned Seth. You mentioned Finn Balor. We mentioned AJ.
I don't think you can go wrong with anybody.
And that, to me, is another reason that Daniel Bryan's all. And we'll finish with this. To me, that's what makes Daniel Bryan all over me. He could wrestle pretty much anyone on that roster and make it interesting.
Right. Okay. All right, James. Thank you. And we'll end with that. And we'll see you later. Like, subscribe, and we'll talk.
Like and subscribe Frank's channel.
Yes. All right. Thank you.